Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. How satisfied are you with your life? Because most people aren't. And how many times have we heard people say, if I only made more money, I would be happy, or if I only got that job or promotion, I would be happy. But what if I told you with those two statements that you're actually looking for the old happy? And if you're looking for a more fulfilled life, you need to find the new happy, which is true happiness. And did you know that there is a difference between the old happy and the new happy? Today, I'm joined by Stephanie Harrison. She's founder of The New Happy, and she received her master's degree in positive psychology and is the author of the international bestseller, New Happy, Getting Happiness Right in a World That Got It Wrong. Stephanie, welcome to Empowered. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be with you.
Oh, I'm so happy as well. And I finished reading your book. I loved it. And I have to say, I kind of feel like I'm the old happy, and that's how I've been living my life.
Mm.
And so you're the creator of the new happy approach to happiness, the new approach to happiness. Please walk us through your story and tell us, how did you get started?
I also have felt the way that you said describing reading the book. I too was really immersed in this old happy form of happiness. And really, it was my own difficulties and my own struggles to be happy that inspired me to want to learn more. And ultimately, that led me to go and pursue my graduate degree in positive psychology and then devote the last 10 years to developing this new philosophy and finding ways to teach it. So I often say that I started out pursuing this because I really wanted to find a way to be happy personally. And along the way, I discovered that I wasn't alone in my struggles and that this information could really benefit a lot of people.
So now, right now, we're discussing the new happy. Please explain to us what's the old happy.
Old happy is my term for our society's understanding and definition of happiness. And we've been conditioned into that ever since we were very, very little. And these messages seep in through all sorts of forms, through the way that we grow up in our family systems, to our workplaces and schools, to even the media that we consume. And over again, what these messages tell us is that one, there's something wrong with you. You have to change who you are in some way in order to be happy. A lot of the time that looks like perfecting ourselves or optimizing ourselves in some way. Two, you have to achieve very specific goals. So there is a set of valued outcomes that our society likes to hold up as being the best, the thing that we should pursue. And if you do those things, if you try really hard to succeed at work, for example, to get promoted, to earn as much money as you can, to be as popular and acclaimed as possible, then you will be happy. And then the last one is that you have to do everything by yourself. You can never lean on other people. You can't struggle. You certainly cannot ask for help. And that individualism and that sense of being alone in the world really is pervasive and ends up to contribute to our loneliness crisis and so many of our struggles with our mental health. So these are sort of the three core pillars of Old Happy and how we have been conditioned into this idea that we have to do these things in order to experience well being.
So, why is old happy harming us now?
There's so much evidence. When I started down this journey, I was just amazed to discover the amount of scientific studies that had been devoted to unpacking many of these ideas, but they hadn't been linked together in a way or in a framework that was digestible and understandable for people. So, old happy harms us in so many different ways. Anytime we're striving to be inauthentic to ourselves or to hide or suppress parts of us, it has a profoundly negative impact on our mental health, on the quality of our relationships, as well as our ability to share ourselves and make a difference in the world using who we are. Pursuing these extrinsic goals, these things that are outside of us that are valued by society, is linked to all sorts of things from increased depression and anxiety to lower quality relationships to even difficulties to achieve those goals. And then finally, the sense of being alone in the world is probably one of the greatest causes and contributors to ill being that exists today. And so old happy is harming us in all of these different ways, but no one is talking about it. And so we can't start to make changes that address it.
So, I think one of the reasons why nobody's talking about it is because a lot of people don't understand this. So,
Yeah.
when we come back, you and I are going to talk about the impact of old happy upon the world that we live in right now? So please don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and today's topic is new happy. Stephanie, before we went to break, I mentioned the impact of old happy. So, what is the impact of old happy upon the world that we live in now?
We What's really interesting, I think, is that when we look at the world and we see all of the problems that are occurring, they all feel impossible to solve, right? They're so enormous, so intractable in many different ways. And my argument is that after all of this research I've done, that old happy actually is what contributes to and keeps those problems pervasive. Because essentially, all of us, we are every single day pursuing happiness. We are trying our very best to be happy. But if we are going out and pursuing happiness through the form of seeking perfection, trying to win in life's competition, trying to achieve as much as we can, even at other people's expenses, and really forgetting our connectedness to one another, how is that million and million and millions of actions going to add up to these bigger problems that we're facing, like the loneliness crisis, the mental health epidemics, the difficulty that we have in solving problems like climate change, which feel impossible to solve? And ultimately, if we do not address this fundamental root cause of all of these problems, which is our understanding of happiness, I don't think we'll ever be able to make a meaningful change in the world and start to really build the world that we all want to live in, which is a place where everybody gets to be happy, where people get to experience well being. Because what could be more important than that?
Agreed. When I was reading your book, Stephanie, I was thinking there's so many topics that come up on the show with different women that things that we struggle with: the imposter syndrome, there's suicide, there's perfectionism, and that seems to be coming up in the book a lot. So, what is a better way to be happy?
I always want people to recognize that the secret to happiness is actually quite simple. It's to be who you are and then to share who you are to help other people. And this integration of your most authentic self expression in the form of service to other people is what will provide you with everything that you're searching for. It will bring you the positive emotions, the sense of meaning and purpose. It'll help you to build relationships. It'll help you to know that you're making an impact on the world and leaving a legacy that makes a difference and that contributes to the world in some way. And through these two tasks, which are really, of course, the work of a lifetime, we get to grow as individuals, to develop our skill set, to learn, to make a difference in the world, and also to know that all that we're doing has this impact on people, this extraordinary impact that changes their lives in ways for the better too. And so, what New Happy is really all about is recognizing that there is a way to be happy for yourself personally that also helps other people to be happy. And that to me is the most beautiful win win that exists in the world.
Absolutely. So, how do you recommend people start finding their new happy?
I think that one of the first things is to identify when you're getting caught in old happy. And this is one of the simplest practices that can have a real major impact. Because one of the things about old happy is that it's subconscious, right? We've been conditioned into these ideas. And so we have to start to peel them away. And this is a process that I call unwinding old happy. And really, it's simply paying attention to when those thoughts occur in your head that say, oh, I'm not good enough, or I have to be perfect, or I have to hide who I am, or maybe conversely, I can't ask for help, I can't lean on anybody, I can't show that I'm struggling. In those moments when you hear that voice in your head saying those words to you, just pause, take a breath, and say, that's old happy. That's not me. That's not the truth of who I am, and it's not how I want to live. And in that moment, when you choose to really counter that, you also have the opportunity to make a different choice, to decide how you'd like to move forward. And it's one step at a time that we learn to unwind old happy in that way.
I love it. I love that. There's so many of us that, struggle. We're running around doing stuff for other people, for ourselves. There's work, there's home. There's a lot going on. What about caring for yourself?
Mhm. Caring for yourself is one of the most beautiful practices that exists because it reminds us that we're worthy of love no matter what. And so when I think about self care, I think about the recognition of who I am as a person and knowing that I don't need to be perfect. And so to me, that looks like treating myself with compassion, especially when I mess up or when I don't do something the way that I wanted it to, or maybe I don't get to everything on my to-do list, and just pausing and saying to myself, hey, Stephanie, it's okay. You're a human. You're trying your best, and you can always learn from this and keep going. And it's that simple act of care that can really make a big difference.
And I love the fact that, you keep bringing up perfectionism because there is no such thing. It's a moving scale. So when we come back, we're going to continue on with the new happy. So please don't go away. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and today's topic is the new happy. Stephanie, what do you think the impact of new happy could be?
Well, in my greatest dreams, it would be that we challenge this societal understanding of happiness and we essentially are able to wipe old happy away and prevent people from falling prey into this ideology and this set of systems that ultimately doesn't serve them, their well being, or our collective well being either. And my hope is that by reconsidering happiness and thinking more about how we come up with a better way of pursuing happiness, that we also are able to come together and make a real difference in solving the biggest problems of our world. I think, one of the things that makes me the most frustrated about living in an old happy world is the idea that we are doomed to live in this way, right? That we can't make change happen at a grand societal scale. And I just simply don't believe that's possible, nor am I willing to accept that. I think that everybody deserves to have the opportunity to experience well-being. And my hope is that with this philosophy and this guidance, that we can give people that roadmap that allows them to do so while also creating it for other people.
As I said, I read the book, I loved it, and I've been recommending it to friends, and I'm telling my stepdaughter to read it. And I just want to know, like, what's been your experience of finding new happy?
In many ways, it's been very meta because in building the new happy, I've been able to discover my own version of it. I think that the opportunity that I've had to be able to put these ideas into practice has given me a lot of proof as to their efficacy. I often say that I was patient zero of old happy, and I also put myself forward as test subject number one for new happy, and putting a lot of these principles into practice for myself so that I could learn, test things out, figure out what wasn't working before I went out and taught them. And now with the experience of having, built an organization that teaches people these lessons, helps them to embody happiness, helps them to share it with others in their own lives, I feel just a profound sense of fulfillment and of true happiness that isn't dependent upon something going well for me or me being perfect or trying to get approval from other people in any way. It's much more grounded and much more stable, which was what I always dreamed about. So it's been a tremendous experience for me personally, and I've benefited so much from it.
That's amazing. I've been watching you on Instagram, and I love the way you engage in this certain topics. So what I did was, for the rest of the show, I've taken certain things from your Instagram posts, and I want to talk to you about it. And one of them you mentioned, if you could see everyone's journeys, you would stop judging yourself harshly. This is important as we see everyone else as being so much more successful. What do you say to that?
I think we have to remember that we have no visibility into anybody else's insides, only their outsides. And what people present on the outside is often very, very different from what's actually happening for them. And one of the things that I often point at as an example is how often have you been following a celebrity or a prominent person and everything is fine or wonderful in their lives, and then all of a sudden they hit you with a surprise announcement about how they were actually going through something really hard, or they're getting a divorce, or they're struggling with their mental health, and you never had any idea about it. So the same is true for the relationships that we have with everyone else in our lives. People are putting forward this essentially a facade of their lives because that's what social media is designed for. And so what happens is as the consumer, we end up, looking all around us and seeing all these perfect, beautiful lives, and then comparing that to our insides and thinking, gosh, there must be something wrong with me. And that's how old happy lies perpetuate these kind of societal narratives that we participate in. And I really want people to recognize that anything that you're consuming on some sort of public platform does not show the true extent of what somebody else is going through in their lives, and it should never ever be used to compare, because essentially you're like comparing an orchid and a monster truck. Like, these two things don't go together and they have nothing in common with one another. So just let it be. Recognize that you are going through the human experience in your own way, as is that person, and that will inevitably involve experiences of suffering, difficult emotions, challenges that have to be overcome. And there's nothing wrong with you for going through that.
And I love the fact that you just said all that because so many people make comparisons. And as you said, you don't know the full story. You don't know the big picture. All you see is the facade that somebody is posting, and you've no idea what's going on behind the scenes. When we come back from this next commercial break, it's our last segment. And I want to talk about people being overwhelmed all the time. And you're going to give us a few simple tools to let us know how to cope. So don't go away. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today we are speaking with Stephanie Harrison. She is an international bestseller of The New Happy, and she's also the founder of The New Happy. Stephanie, before we went to break, I'd mentioned something about being overwhelmed. I was again Instagram. I saw something that you were talking about. People feeling overwhelmed. Can you please give us three simple tools that anyone can cope right now?
Yeah, especially this time of year and, with everything going on in the world, I think that feeling overwhelmed is completely normal. So, three tools that you can use at any moment to help you. The first is actually just pausing to recognize that you're overwhelmed. I know that for me, this is often the hardest step because I immediately get overwhelmed by my overwhelm, and this is how we want to stop that. So, pause, take a breath, and just say to yourself, it's feeling like a lot right now, or I'm feeling just like there's too much on my plate or I'm very stressed. Try and describe whatever emotion that you're feeling in whatever language that you have. The second step that I want you to take is to try and take all of those thoughts and feelings that are making you feel that way and then put them down on a piece of paper. Once they're out of your head, you will have the ability to use your more rational brain to be able to unpack and figure out how to solve any problems that you're dealing with, or really address things that might even be brewing beneath the surface, like difficult emotions you've been suppressing, or a worry that's been just really lingering for a while that you need to do something about. So just get it all down onto a piece of paper. And if that's not accessible to you or doesn't quite resonate, you can also grab your phone, do a voice memo, talk about it to a friend, anything that sort of helps you get it out of that head of yours. And then the
Uh,
third thing is to choose just one task that you are going to work on. And it has to be only one, because otherwise you run the risk of inviting even more overwhelm into your life. And then just say, what can I do for 10 minutes today that will help me to address this area that I've identified? So let's say it's that worry that I mentioned. Maybe you're going to figure out how you're going to get some help with it and talk to a friend about that worry and get some reassurance. That is a step that you can take that's going to help. And what you'll find is that if you come back again to your list tomorrow and do the exact same thing, just spend 10 minutes on something that's making you feel a little overwhelmed, you'll be able to chip away at that. And pretty soon you'll have a better grasp on a sense of well being and a sense of you have your things in control, or that you know how you can move forward. And that's really good for our mental health.
I love it. I love that. So there are a lot of people as well right now that think, why am I here? What's going on? How does somebody find their purpose?
I think that one of the most interesting and easy ways to find your purpose is to, instead of thinking about what you want it to be, think about what's calling you. And what I mean by that is, if you think about all of the problems in our world right now, which one of those problems would you solve if you had a magic wand and you could just flick it and magically do anything that you wanted to? that problem likely gives you an indication of a cause that really matters to you. So let's say that you decide that there's a specific issue that is really upsetting you that's occurring in the world right now. The next step would be to identify, okay, what can I do to help? Is there some version of this that's happening in my local community? Is there an organization that's already devoted to doing this? Is there a way I can incorporate it into what I'm doing at work? And when we're thinking about our purpose from this angle of where am I being called to serve, it becomes a lot easier and we can disentangle some of the challenging narratives that come along with thinking like, oh, am I good enough to do this? Or I'm not qualified and how do I do that? And instead really focus ourselves on how we can help and what that looks like.
So we have less than a minute left, and I really want to tackle this because I think it's important. Um, how can busy how can you be busy and popular and still feel lonely? How do we stop feeling lonely and being lonely?
Because loneliness isn't about having a lot of people around you or having a full calendar. It's about knowing that people are there with you in your challenges. And so, what that means is that it requires opening up to people and letting them in and being vulnerable with them about what's going on in your life and being willing to ask for help. That's why there are so many people who have such, beautiful looking outside lives who are really struggling deeply because they don't feel like people are attending to their challenges with care. And so, what that means is either starting by opening up the conversation and saying, how can I help? How can I get some help here? Or trying to build relationships of connection and mutuality that fill that need.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. This was great.
Thank you.
Stephanie says to be happy, help others be happy. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski, and I'm here to empower you and make frugality fashionable. Bye for now.